pledge allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America, to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice. Thank you, Ms. Smith. Would you call the roll, please?
Mr. Gisbert?
Here.
Ms. Debbie? Here. Dr. Ryan? Here. Dr. Bruce? Here. Ms. Perez?
Here. Item 3 is to adopt the agenda. A motion to the floor.
So moved.
Is there a second? Any questions? Mr. Nadeau? Not at this time. Ms. Spence?
Dr. Berry? Yes. Dr. Ryan? Yes. Mr. Perez?
Yeah.
Mr. Gisbert?
Yes.
Debbie? Yes.
Item 4, moving the consent agenda. Do I have a motion to put that on the floor, please? Second?
Second.
All right, Mr. Nadeau?
On the consent agenda tonight, we have to approve minutes from our most recent board meetings, so the 9/29 special board meeting and the 9/29 regular board meeting. Item 4.2 is to approve committee reports. So for this meeting, we have the Business Advisory Council minutes and the Educational Programming Committee minutes. 4.3 is to employ professional staff. 4.4 is to employ support staff. 4.5, we have a resignation effective October 1st. We're going to miss Mr. Fear after 35 years of service. He is retiring. We appreciate all that he has done. 4.6 are some contract amendments looking at days and hours. 4.7 are stipends. Most of those have to do with professional development or building leadership teams and some DLT assignments. 4.8 is to approve the North Central Ohio Education Service Center agreement. This particular agreement is for a VCDA, so we have some students with some needs and it requires some specialty areas. This is one of the ones that referenced last board meeting. At certain times, we don't have a large enough population to employ a person full time, so we look to the consortium for help. Item 4.9 is the same way. It's an agreement to provide a braille service. Again, our needs do not support a full-time person, so we look at how we can make this responsible by sharing it through the ESC consortium. Thank you.
Are there any questions or comments regarding the consent agenda? I too would like to thank Mr. Pure for all his time. He's a true blue City School person. So thank you, Brad, wherever you are. Any other discussion? Ms. Spence?
Dr. Ryan? Yes. Mr. Gisbert?
Yes.
Ms. Debbie? Yes. Dr. Berry? Yes.
Item 5 is the opportunity for the public to address the board. For board policy BDDH, each person addressing the board shall give his or her name and address. If several people wish to speak, each person is allowed 3 minutes until the total time of 30 minutes is used. During that period, no person may speak twice until all who desire to speak have the opportunity to do so. The period of public participation may be extended by a vote of the majority of the board present and voting. Additionally, we would request that individual students' names and or employee names not be mentioned. If you wish to state a complaint about a particular employee, curriculum, instructional materials, we ask that you please review board policies KLB, KLD, and KLD-R, and follow the steps contained in those policies before raising a complaint directly with the board. Persons wishing to submit comments can do so by emailing tcs_board_comments@tiffanycityschools.org. The meeting will be publicly available via Facebook. At this time, Mr. Nadeau, is there opening comment that you'd like to make as we go to the session?
I would just like to thank our staff, our new leadership in the Board of Education. We face a very challenging time in education right now. and we know that we face some fiscal barriers. So when we talk about balancing the budget, which not only the board has asked for us to do, but the state mandates that we stay solvent, we are looking at a choice. We either have to increase revenue or we have to decrease expenditures. Previously, at the last regular board meeting, we began a discussion about what a possible reduction in expenditures and costs would be. We know that we have already looked at trimming down some areas. Most of those were administrative, and we believe we have hit just over $810,000 already in reductions from previous years. This was done through attrition. Anytime that a staff member has left, we look to see if we can absorb those responsibilities for current staff members in order to make sure that we are taking our expenditures not only seriously, but we're also making sure that we are not addressing the student classroom student teacher ratio. That's the last thing we want to do to impact the classroom and impact the task on education. To balance our budget, we have to hit a number of approximately $3 million. And this expense, again, please correct me if I'm off on some of my numbers. I rely on expense heavily to provide those numbers. And so the plan that we discussed or began to discuss last month at the regular board meeting looked at a reduction in every department. Not necessarily equitably, because we have some departments that are larger than others, we have some that are more expensive than others, less than others, and also staff members. So again, we are looking at a possible reduction in all departments, knowing that we want to avoid attacking the classroom at all possible.
As the board president, I'd like to say as the Board of Education, one of the most important responsibilities that we have is to ensure the long-term financial stability of our school district. Like households and businesses, we must operate within our means while continuing to provide high-quality educational opportunities for all students. Currently, the district faces a challenging financial outlook. Rising costs, combined with limited revenue growth, have created a situation that requires careful and deliberate action. To maintain fiscal responsibility and comply with state requirements for a balanced budget, we must consider all options, which includes increasing revenue and decreasing expenditures. Our goal is not simply to make cuts, but to make thoughtful, data-driven decisions that protect the classroom as much as possible and preserve core educational services as much as possible. Likewise, we will explore every opportunity to increase revenue, whether through new funding sources, grants, or community partnerships. These are difficult conversations, but they're necessary to ensure that our district remains strong, sustainable, and able to serve our students well in the future. The board is committed to transparency, collaboration, and keeping our community informed throughout this process. Together, we can make the responsible choices needed to secure the financial health of our schools. In this spirit of transparency, collaboration, and community communication, we now provide this time for community input. Is there anyone here who would like to address the board? Hearing none and seeing none, I would like to amend the agenda, or make a motion to do that. The reason I'd like to amend the agenda is for our board to discuss some of these items. So do I first of all have a motion to amend the agenda? All right. The motion is to amend the agenda, have a board discussion, and then reopen for community discussion. Is that right? Is there a second to that motion? Second. Any discussion? Hearing none, Ms. Pence.
Dr. Brown? Yes. Mr. Brass? Mr. Isabel?
Yes.
Mrs. Duffy? Yes. Dr. Gross? Yes.
Well, Mr. President, I do have one question for the superintendent. You tendered us the outline of your
Yes, sir.
And I know this has been in the works. You've mentioned before. Are the staff aware of this by now?
They are aware that every department could be affected, but we have not notified any staff, A, because any reduction that would incorporate CBAs would have to follow that CBA for reduction of force. And B, we don't want to alarm people if the board chooses to go a different route.
Do you want to go through that with us?
Sir, I can. So I'll go through department by department and then take any questions. But when looking at transportation, the board has a couple of choices. So right now, we transport more than state minimum. We transport at a half a mile, and the state minimum would enlarge that distance to 2 miles. If the board in fact would go to state minimum busing, that would eliminate the responsibility of the district to transport high school students to and from the high school. And it would extend that half a mile to a 2 mile radius. By doing so, we could save potentially $458,000 annually. There are other things that we can look to do within transportation as well. We could look to evaluate how it is we transport to and from athletic events and activities. For example, if we have boys soccer and girls soccer playing, instead of having 2 separate buses, it would be somewhat of an inconvenience because we could have both teams ride together, knowing that one team will sit for a couple hours before they play. Not optimal for athletic performance, being a former coach, but it would be a way to save not only miles and gas on our buses by running a single bus, it would also save on driver costs. So when we talk about transportation, there's not only to and from school in which the board could make some changes, it also could be to athletic events. Some other options would be eliminating transportation for athletic events and activities to away events. That is something that other schools have looked at doing. But with anything that we discussed, there are ramifications to making these changes. This is not something that we look forward to. It's not something that is optimal for students and or staff when we look at both student opportunity and student academics.
On that, do you want to take questions as
Sure.
the departments? Okay.
Please.
On that transportation, last one, Mr. President mentioned the transportation that we do for some of our private schools. Would that be impacted? Would it be cut? Would it be eliminated or reduced? How would that work for those situations?
So our typically school students are considered tier 1. We provide transportation in accordance with either state minimum expectations or board policy. Right now, ours exceed state minimum expectation. But we have an obligation or mandated by the Department of Education to transport students to private schools that are within our district as well as public charter schools. So that would affect Calvert, and it would also affect Bridges. If we change the policy to state minimum, that would also be changed for those 2 entities as well. They follow the policy. We cannot differ the policy, we would follow the same. So if we went to 2 miles, it would then be extended both to our private school transportation and to our public charter school transportation.
So if they lived outside that radius, they would be charged no transportation.
Correct. And I'm going to jump ahead, but just along the same lines would be, again, looking at athletics, an elimination and or pay to participate for athletics, extracurricular events and activities, clubs, and also performing in visual arts. If there were a fee structure put in place, that fee would be placed on any student athlete. So we do have student athletes from Calvert who participate on Tiffin City Schools athletic teams because they're not offered through Calvert. Those fees would also extend to anybody in that situation as well.
So would they also extend to, for example, homeschoolers that want to participate in sports as well?
It would, yes, sir. Sorry, I forgot to mention.
But to clarify, because we actually have 3 tiers of busing, half a mile for K-5. Middle school, I thought was 1.
I believe you're
In the high
correct.
school, what's 2? Do we bus a lot of kids at 2 miles before the high school already at this point?
We do, yes.
And band and choir are both co-curricular, so the curricular part would be in effect. But if we eliminate transportation, that would also affect any away contests that those kids would have.
Right. Any and all athletics, activities, which is performing arts, visual arts, band choir, and then any club activity. So our K Club is one of our clubs that does a whole lot, and they travel to some conferences and other opportunities to provide service. Those would be affected either by transportation and or a participation fee if not eliminated.
This just came to mind. What about field trips?
Field trips would be reduced significantly. I would hate to say eliminate altogether. All field trips have to be attached to learning standards and student outcomes. So again, that does impact the classroom and our opportunity to provide students with a well-rounded education, but we would be forced to limit those per building, per grade level.
And if we reduce busing, if we put this in, do you believe that that would hurt our attendance levels?
I do. I believe it would hurt our attendance levels pre-K through 12.
Mr. Zoe, I apologize if I had brought this previously, but in this circumstance where, we're needing to make those reductions, would we also be looking at selling buses or reducing drivers, staff?
So if we went to state minimum busing, it would eliminate, I believe, 9 routes. So again, that would impact our staff.
Any other questions on transportation? Okay, go ahead and go on, Mr. Weaver.
So for the maintenance department, we would look at eliminating overtime. And essentially what that looks like is when we have days that we either have closing and or delays, especially in the winter. Right now we have staff that comes in at about 4 o'clock and they do all of the plowing, clearing, snow, salting to make the entryway safe for staff and students. What would happen is those staff members continue to work their normal hours outside of coming in early. If we had to go to eliminating overtime as a cost-saving measure, if they came in at 4 o'clock to prepare those buildings at noon, they would go home. And again, we still have other needs that need to take place during the day, both for safety of staff and students, but we would eliminate that as a cost-saving measure. And they would just go home after their shift, no matter what time it started, in order to prepare the buildings. We would also look to eliminate summer workers. That's a significant savings. However, there's always a cost to that. Right now, we would put extra stress on our limited number of custodians and maintenance crew to get our buildings ready for the opening of school. All the waxing, all the cleaning, all the maintenance and routine repairs that take place, we rely heavily on summer workers, or summer workers that only work for that particular part of the time to help us get our building ready. And as we know, some of our buildings are requiring more and more maintenance and upkeep to make sure that they're safe and secure for our students and staff. So again, while not directly impacting the classroom, it does impact the classroom environment, the building environment, and that comes with a cost. And then
I'm glad you mentioned it, because as you're talking, I'm thinking, well, not only impacts people, but impacts the building. Building deteriorates if it has less maintenance and cleaning services.
Right, and that impacts learning. Right, we know all the evidence-based research about learning and the learning environment being conducive to student learning in an optimal fashion, and this would impact that. Not directly as far as ratio, but it impacts our learning environments. And with our buildings aging, we know that would impact the environment that our staff and students are in every day.
So with less summer maintenance, you could foresee bigger repair projects in a timely fashion.
Right, we may not be able to get to some of the routine maintenance simply because of sheer manpower and time. We would also, within that group, look at one full-time equivalent, which is a person. So again, when we talk about eliminating overtime, that that is not a reduction in personnel, it's a reduction in expense. But we also then have to boil down to when we're trying to generate either an increase of revenue or a decrease in expenditures of $3 million, almost 10% of our annual budget, eventually we get to the part where it's either people or programs. And so we would look to reduce one full-time position. Questions about maintenance? So,
Food service.
Sure.
I just want to make sure we're crystal clear. Right now with food service, everybody gets free lunches. Now that is something separate from what we're talking about, I believe. But is there a chance that we would have to go back to charging for lunches to stay open?
So I'll give you my answer, then I'm going to also ask Ms. Spence to help me out in this area. But right now, we're part of the Community Eligibility Program, often referred to as CEP, which provides for free breakfast and free lunch. That's through a grant. That would not impact the personnel, full-time equivalent person. And I believe that we still have, is it 2 years left after this year as part of that CEP program, which unless it is cut by the federal and state governments, we would be obligated to fulfill. And in 2 years, we would have to evaluate where we're at. That's fair to say, Ms. Spencer.
Then that's
Thank you.
another part of that is I know when I was here at the middle school, we also had the weekend food bags that kids took home with them. I assume that's part of another grant and not part of our daily operations.
That is correct, and we want to thank the Kiwanis Club because we are currently working with Kiwanis to bring that program back in it so that our families who are in need have food opportunities, but none of that would be at the expense to the district. It would all be through the Kiwanis and donated generously by that program. When we look at athletics, activities, and events, and again, we're talking about sports, we're talking about performing arts, band, choir, visual arts, and any student activity clubs. We would have to make a decision of whether or not, again, we increase revenue by looking at a pay to participate structure for all of those student-led things, and or elimination, and that would decrease expenditures for that. Right now, generally speaking, we spend a little over $400,000 a year on athletics, activities, club events. And so to balance the budget, we're forced to even look at generating revenue through a fee structure and or then eliminating those to decrease expenditures. Now, that's a very critical decision in my opinion. We know that evidence-based research would suggest students are more likely to succeed when they're attached to the school. So we know that we have just about 70% or so that are attached to some sort of athletic participation, performing arts, band, choir, visual arts, and or a club activity. To eliminate those, research would say you're now disengaging students from the academic environment as well. But we are faced with either increasing revenue or decreasing expenditures. Neither one are good, and we have to make the decision which route we would go if forced to reduce.
As a coach, I would tell you I don't like either one of them. They're both bad. I know when we went to this pay to play before, we were able to help some people who couldn't afford it with scholarships. But I think Dr. McBride mentioned this last minute, that there are people who won't participate and won't ask for help because of the personal pride in that situation. On the other side of that coin, if we eliminate all sports, I feel very confident that kids will leave our district to go where they can participate, and once they leave, they won't come back. So for me, either one of these ideas is bad. But again, I understand we're going to be forced to make these types of decisions. So I want everybody to be aware of it.
I think that's what I think we have to explain though is open enrollment isn't guaranteed. Every other district doesn't have to. So the idea is, well, I'll just enroll somewhere else. it's discretionary. So either, I think, the issue is with these fees, if they're pretty big, what are we going to have left for our students? And, what are we really doing? Or do we just, we're not going to pretend working program, let's just eliminate it at that. The hard part. I don't know which one's the better answer. I don't either.
It's to various schools, football, ball caliber, whatever that may be, we lose money. So, that follows, a certain amount of money follows that child, so we're kind of also cutting off our own subscriber base to, let's cut athletics and activities, and then we lose kids, we lose money, and as you said, I agree. I'm in high school and I switched schools, I'm probably not going to be back a year or two later. I'm going to stay where now I'm back for 1 year, so I really feel that's a risk we would take, but as you said, neither option's a good option, and I fear it's what we have to do. It anticipates a lot of stress on a lot of families when we have even one child, if you have multiple children, they want to play multiple activities, that's going to be a real stressor on a lot of families, but
And I would agree with everything that the board has stated. I think we also lose a sense of community.
Absolutely.
All of these activities, events, bring a sense of community, a sense of pride. And we need to keep Tiffin City Schools and the city of Tiffin all engaged in what we do. We are blessed to be the education community. We have Heidelberg, we have TU, we have Terra State, we have Calvert, we have Bridges. And we all work together and everyone will be impacted. All impacted. We have to make reductions. That's not our goal. We have great collaborative partnerships. And we believe that when Tiffin City Schools, Howard, Heidelberg, TU, Terra State are all great, the city of Tiffin is great. And so this does have a larger impact. We focus on student outcomes, student learning environments, but this is a larger picture that really impacts the city of Tiffin and what we do and how we do things.
Clarification, the fees would this apply to middle school as well?
They would, yes.
I hate to mention this option, but is it an option to keep your high school activities and eliminate your middle school? Having said that, you lose all your feeder programs for music and all your feeder programs for athletics. That's another route that we could look at.
It is an option, yes. The board does have options. Our community has options. So that could be evaluated. The cost savings would not be as significant because we have less middle school sports, less cost, less tournament fees, everything goes on. And that same thing holds true for clubs and performing arts. We have them, but not to the extent of what we do.
In essence, do our ticket funds pay for the officiating?
You could say that. Ticket income helps. But we also have some sports that we don't currently charge for. And those are smaller sports, which cost less but bring in less. So it impacts. I know that a question was posed about if, and I'm making this scenario up, but the question essentially said, if my son or daughter plays basketball and there is a fee structure, does that money go to the basketball program? And the answer is yes, but it actually goes to the athletic department because we have to support all of our activities, all of our performing arts, all of our club experience. So yes, it does, but indirectly, it's like the general fund for the district. We have a general fund that has to assume the cost for certain things in order for us to operate. And it would be the same way with the pay participate structure.
This number, so you're in a non-winning situation, ideally the levy passes. With any of you, some of these. But with this number specifically, it could be a misnomer because the estimated savings is based off of this year's level of participation, which we can assume that if it either has a cost to it, well, if it has a cost to it, that either fewer students will play or some students will. And so the cost savings, while still necessary, we actually can't know about it.
We tried to factor in a reduction in number because of those factors. We tried to look at and produce an estimate of multi-sport activity performing arts enrollment, which is very challenging to do. It's hard to predict that. Regardless, again, the structure that is before you is similar to the amount of revenue we would look to increase, if so passed, that it helps us, but it doesn't solve all of our problems, right? We know that this projection is about $318,000, and we spend a little over $410,000. We would have to still look at measures to balance that budget, but we also know for what we need, knowing we still have to take action so the impact doesn't hit our taxpayers as hard as what it would. And we thank that support because we know we have our part to play in this.
I think that's an important piece. I know that we're each going to have certain ones that we get stuck on, community members get stuck on. There's no single one of these that fixes it. They all have to be together. And earlier you said equal because the departments are different, the size and the cost of all pieces are different. But everybody is going to be affected with our goal of being the last place that's affected is the classroom.
That is correct.
So assuming you have 300 participants, you're generating, and 300, it's 150,000. Minus the ones that you're losing in terms of open enrollment. So in the end, it really doesn't do anything to solve. Physically, it's not a good source of revenue.
It is not sustainable. It's not a sustainable answer for what it is that we need to ultimately fix and balance in the budget.
And then looking ahead, seeing that one of the things we're cutting is mental health. Sports and athletics do help with that issue. One less way to address it. And our kids will have, and the city of Tiffin doesn't have the activities to express or practice. So we've been providing that service to some of these activities, so across the community as well in terms of, we do have vendors that would immediately provide this. That would hurt the city well, we come running to from their sales tax as well. Yeah, I don't like either.
And I think you bring up a very valid point. Some of these reductions would affect some of our larger events. We look at the cross-country carnival. This could impact that. And we know that the cross-country carnival is not only great for student athletes, but it's also great for Tiffin. We have a lot of people that come and witness Tiffin, that spend the day or the night in Tiffin and able to see the great things that we have, both from an academic and athletic and performing arts, but also a community standpoint as well. I know for this year at the carnival, after the carnival is over, we saw a lot of people that are at the carnival downtown, right? We had farmers markets, we had other things going on, and they were able to see how great Tiffin is when everybody else is.
The other thing that bothers me about the extracurriculars, they also impact your graduation rate. Because there are some kids that graduate solely because they were involved in extracurricular activities, whether that be athletics or arts or music. That impacts the quality of their education, and it certainly impacts what we're graded on by the state.
That's behavior, social, mental health, all of those things. Obviously, we all know we're involved in something, whether that's music or athletics or football. But it's getting you off the screen, it's getting you out of the house. I'm very fearful of that as it affects a lot of,
Okay.
not more than just graduation, but I think behavior.
Oh, absolutely.
Attendance,
Turn
mental
to
health.
And I think one of the things that Mrs. Steffi had brought up last time, when Heidelberg TU bring on people that are looking to move to the area for employment, and you take them around as a realtor, one of the first questions they always ask is about the school. And if you're having to say there either isn't athletics or it's pay to participate, I know for a fact that being at TU, when I talk to people about moving here, being able to say, talk about the quality of the schools in the area makes a big difference into somebody choosing to move here from a more suburban or urban area. So I think that, as you have said, it has a bigger impact community-wide than we might think.
I know this was said on Facebook recently, in one of the posts, but I think it bears to be said again, is it passing this levy, this is my soapbox, but it's not only benefits kids and people employed by different city schools, but it does affect all of the community. You know, housing, but you want your house to go up in the next 10 years or down. It really isn't. When I did a lot of tours for private National Michigan University, and that was always one of the first questions asked. What schools like was the quality of the schools. So, you know, if we can't say that we support our schools, then, you know, it's hard to bring good people here to buy homes, spend money. You know, so it affects everybody. I guess it's just what I'm trying to say. It affects all of us in our quality or housing prices.
But I think, I just checked with the treasurer, and I think the number we got is, currently we invest about 1% budget in these activities. 1%. And look at the return we get from our children. It's the games, the activities, the art awards, the choir shows, and what it does in developing our children. It also, indicated, is makes him a lot more marketable later. It's already tough getting into a college. This would deprive them just a ton of scholarships they couldn't even apply for. So coming here would be, you may get an academic scholarship, but if it's between you and somebody with, you know, community activities and sports, guess who's not going to get it? It's going to be you. You're going to be left out. And so for the community, it means that your child is going to be less marketable in the future. And I think I said this to someone before. This isn't about whether we're managing our finances. It's what we want to invest in our future. Because at the end of the day, their future is our future. And, you know, maybe I'm not going to go to the moon one day. Maybe somebody in the future will. That's if we carry that tradition on and provide them. I mean, sure, this little option is going to save us $400,000, $300,000, $200,000 a year, but at the end of the day, what are we getting?
And even though 1% sounds like a small number, as Dr. McBride said, all of these things, this is 2 pages, adds up, and we have to do it all. You know, you might think that, you know, saving or earning 200,000, whichever way we do it, isn't a lot, but you add it up, and I'm looking at each of these categories, and each of these categories is somewhere between 100 and 400. So you have to do all to get to 3 million.
But I think it highlights the idea, I wrote to this on the 8 years on board, eliminating sports isn't going to fix it. That's not. There isn't one thing that's going to break, you know, the physical future. We're limited by.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying, they have to do them all. They all go together. They should play.
And Mr. Nadeau shared, the team has worked tirelessly on building this plan. We said that we have a choice. I think it's very evident, we don't feel we have a choice. I think a lot of community members we hear, like, well, this is clear that. There's no one thing we get rid of. I do think that we have a say. Most likely move to a approach. But again, like, there's no single thing that fixes it. And unfortunately, we're going to have to touch athletics and activities. We're going to have to touch all of these, because then, if we want to take any of these off, the data on that is even. And so all of these are discussions with the charge that we gave Mr. McDowell, touch the classroom. All of these are going to impact. All of these are going to have a negative impact on the community, but it has to be what's the lesser of the bad. And so I think it's really evident that we're like, okay, we're not sponsorships, really incredible coach relationships, help figure out who or because there is a barrier to that. And so then it's going to put undue stress on it. That's far better.
And if we do the pay to play, just before we move on, I do want to say, because I did have kids in the district when we did pay to play before. This is different. First of all, it's more. It's per sport. There's not a family cap. I have 4, so I met the family cap. This is not a family cap, so if you have 2, 3, 4 children participating in even one sport, this is going to be a pretty high number. If they're participating in more than one sport. So, it's still going to hurt, but it's not what we want to do, it's what we have to do.
And we did look at a cap, but when you look at the overall picture, again, it's a little over $410,000. This structure in itself produces revenues, if these numbers are within reason, of $318,000. If we would put a cap or less than this, it puts us right back in a situation of we have to go somewhere else to have the
Well, is that
expenditure.
less for we to either eliminate or we can
It is, and I think it is critically important. We have said we will continue to protect the classroom, but everything our entire staff does impacts students. The research is very clear that if a student is able to form one positive professional relationship with one staff member, they're more successful. That's one staff member. That's not always the teacher. That's our educational aides. That's our coaches. That's our cafeteria workers who know our students by name and serve them every day. It is by our secretaries who greet families. There is a cost to everything. And we can try and protect the classroom ratio in that learning environment, but everything does impact our students on a daily basis, and everything does impact our overall product. We know that any of these reductions hurt our overall product, which means you will see that come to play when we have our state report a year or two after this. And again, that affects everybody. It affects our community. We want a great product. We have great students. We have great teachers. We need to be able to balance the budget, and we're asking for support. And we know the support we're asking for doesn't relieve us of our responsibility to continue to try to look for ways to make sure we're being fiscally responsible and not put all of that burden on our taxpayers.
That being said,
Clarify for the record here, what you're proposing to the board is a fee of $500 for the first, $250 for the second, and $100 for the third. So basically every season. So easily a parent could be looking at nearly $1,000 for the child to be active.
Which the average family household in Tiffin.
Yeah, it's about $400. The median income is $55,000, which comes out to about $34 a month. And then times 12, that's $360 plus 48 is $408.
Household income.
I think that's correct.
I mean, we know how we feel it's here.
So we would move on and we would look at some contracts. One of the contracts is for mental health services that are provided. We would look to eliminate that. Again, we're not saying that this is what's best for students, best for families, best for staff. but it is a cost, and when we're evaluating what we do and what we are mandated to do by the department. Following that, each and every other department, treasurer's office, the district office, and each one of our buildings would have a reduction in personnel. I think it's premature right now, governed by CBA and other factors, to be able to actually say what those are. But we know that every other department, it's people or programs, once we get down to looking at $3 million, each one of them would have a reduction in personnel.
Could you talk a little bit about the timeline that the rollout of that when these would go into effect?
The recommendation would be some of these would happen immediately. Again, this is all pending board approval and the final recommendation. I will evaluate after we have tonight's discussion, any other stakeholder input. So this is not set. I'm going to make that clear. We're looking for guidance as well. But some of those immediate impacts would be summer workers would be gone immediately, eliminating overtime. Those are things that we can take action on immediately. That would help us, all the issue, but it would help us come to the cost, but it would help us. Then there would be a rollout. Some of the personnel would go into the reduction plan, which is governed by CBA for anybody under a union. And again, that's a process. Those would take effect probably the year. And if we look at transportation, any adjustment in transportation done to and from school would have to take place next year in August. But what we are doing is saying these things will happen. They're not an if, they're not an oh, or hopeful question. We know that this is booming. We know what our financial crisis is like. And so we would have probably a 3-tier rollout, some immediate, some coming, and some would impact next year.
Is there anything else before we open it back up to the community?
When this does get published, people will see that this is a lot of jobs. Which again,
Without, talking about positions, and those are, we can give an estimate.
Sure. We're looking roughly at 12 full-time teachers across the district. Again, it's not fair to say this, but I'm trying to put some type of tangible takeaway from it. We have 6 buildings you're looking at. It would not be how we have to do it, but it equates to 2 teachers per building. We're looking at about 15 educational aides. Again, you're looking at multiple people per building. You're looking at about 5 secretaries, almost 1 per building. This impacts everyday functionality for our students. And that really is something that will also stretch our staff. So every time we reduce our staff, it puts more burden, which leads to burnout, right? Which leads to the opportunity right now with the educational environment and the lack of staff just everywhere in the country, that we could see our staff. Again, that's detrimental to our students. We have a great staff. Them, because we know it's not only good for them, it's also important for our students. If it's okay, I would like to make sure that I give credit, because putting this together, people in the program that impact our students, our staff, our community is very difficult. But Ms. Spence, Mr. Bose, Mr. Lord, all of our principals, department heads, union leadership, we've all collaborated to say, this is not what we want, this is not what's best for kids, but this is something we have to do. And I can't thank our whole team and the board's support in trying to produce something that's very challenging and very, very difficult to swallow. So I want to thank everybody. I do appreciate everything that our whole entire team does every day to support our students, our families, and our community.
Ms. Spence, is there anything we're missing?
I think that it would be a missed opportunity for me to not address the staff situation in my office. I realize, that this is cuts for every department. I shared these concerns with Mr. So don't know, and I understand that every single one of these, we don't want to do in any way, shape, or form. But since I've come to the district, I've already lost one staff member that we have replaced. And I feel that there are some departments where we can maybe put things on the back burner a little bit. But our focus is paying the bills and doing payroll. And almost everything that we do in our office is something that needs to be addressed. So, in this situation, we're being asked to hire out services to help to fulfill all the roles that we have. So I don't think that our savings would be, probably as much as we should hope for. But again, that would be way down the road once we try to accomplish, everything that we need to with the. I just felt that I wanted to bring that to you guys.
Mr. Nadeau, I think that, because you've also gave us a summary, and I always hear that we're just too top. You gave us a reminder that we have. And she just referred that. So we've been doing that. And so.
Well, and I think to be fair to all of those who aren't. Staff. I know this is comments are going to be universal. They're going to be the things that all departments are experiencing. This is not new. We have not been attending to our fiscal needs. And we're running skinny and tight in most places. And every department is going to feel more of it. So I just want to make sure that we're giving units to all those who aren't at the table as well, because that's going to be the exact same experience at all.
I also just want to make sure that we're clear that this is all if the levy doesn't pass. If the levy passes, is there anything on this list you feel we have to do anyways? I don't want to pass the levy and then all of a sudden come back and say, well, a year from now, nope, we're going to have to do big participation.
That's a great question. So we know that the levy, if passed, will generate $3.193 million. We know that that helps us and it takes a big burden off. But we still need to allow, you could still see some reductions in efficiency. It would put off, right, for the sustaining of this operational levy. I feel comfortable. It would put off on paving versus construction. But we still would look at areas that we believe may be able to be reduced because, again, we know our taxpayers are making a huge sacrifice. We need to make sure we're living up to that. You could still see, and I would expect to come back to the board and say there are still some areas, even though it passed and we appreciate our community support, that we need to make sure we're addressing because we need to be good stewards of what our community is supporting.
Since you've been here, there have already been, we have on this list here reductions that have already occurred. It's not replacing people and shifting those job responsibilities to someone else. And I do feel like over the last year and a half, we have done a good job of making things a little leaner. Will that be published as well that we've already done?
Yes, and it was provided. We have.
So when this gets voted on, once the final decision is made and this gets publicized, that would be on there.
I feel it's.
Things we've already done.
I feel for transparency's sake, we have to acknowledge what we've already done. Yes, we haven't advertised it because again, we're trying to be fiscally responsible and kind of right our
I just
ship.
think it's good for people to see that.
We're still going to evaluate contracts and efficiency and staffing levels to maintain it because we know there are still some uncertainties, right? We operate on a 2-year state biannual budget. So 3 to 4 years from now, we have projections, but I can't feel safe in saying things are going to remain the way that they're projected. And again, we know costs are rising no matter what, inflation is rising no matter what. We're not growing our revenues at the rate inflation is currently. we still have to be fiscally responsible. So we are going to continue to evaluate how to become more efficient and where we can look to take some of those expenditures away. Again, it will be minimized because we have support from our community, but we're not done, and I would expect our community to hold us accountable to saying, if you can make a reduction in expenditures to help out, you should do that, and we will.
Anything else for the good of the order? Do we have community members that would like to speak at this point? Now we've lowered the boom. And I believe I'm speaking correctly that these decisions will need to be made at the October regular meeting.
Yes, sir. I will provide a recommendation to the board. Again, we're still taking in all considerations. We're still looking for ways. We're trying to be creative. So we will take any and all information, and over the next several days, I will get with our team, and we will evaluate this with a draft plan. I do believe a lot of time and effort and research into it, so I wouldn't expect major changes, but we're always looking to make sure that what we're doing and the information we're providing to the board is the best and most accurate that we can provide. And again, I will be responsible for making that recommendation to the board at the October 27th board.
On behalf of the board, I want to thank you and your team for all this very difficult work. This is not easy to do. It's not fun to do. Hopefully, we don't have to do this. But one thing we've been upfront with our community is we're not asking for what we think will pass. We're asking for what we think we need. And we're not looking for a surplus. We're looking for what we need to operate. I think you've done a good job of stating the figures for us and showing us where we are.
I just need to reiterate, it's our team approach. I have to thank everybody that's on our team, and again, it's our stakeholders. We've gone to meet with principals. Our union leadership teams have been phenomenal. Ms. Spence, Mr. Bowes, all of our department heads have been part of this. This is by no means the work. I would not be able to do this without our team. We preach team every single day in Tiffin State Schools. The board is part of our team. Our community is part of our team. I don't believe there's success without a team. And so I just want to thank and recognize everybody who is with us in this good fight.
And if you have comments between now and the next board meeting, you can reach us at TCS_board comments at TiffinCitySchools.org. Is the text line still available?
It is, yes. So the text line is still available. The board email is still available. My email is available. My cell phone is there and available. We are still meeting with community stakeholders. Mr. Kisbeth and I met with the group this afternoon. We are doing everything we can to make sure we get input, we hear what our community is saying, and then we're taking that forward to do what we believe for the best interest of Tiffin City Schools.
And thank you to those who came tonight to hear and to engage with us, to be able to be aware of what's at stake.
Anything else from good of the order? We have no need for an executive session tonight. So I would entertain a motion to adjourn. Is there a second?
I'll second.
Ms. Spence?
Mr. Kisbit,
Yes.
Mrs. Barrett, or Dr. Bears,
Yes.
Mr. Brett,
Okay, our next regular scheduled meeting will be October 27th, 6:30 p.m. here at the middle school. Thank you all for who attended here and also who looked us up on Facebook. Thank you.